For thousands of years, Westeros was a brutal meat grinder, where kingdoms fought endless wars, castles burned, and rivers of blood shaped the history of the continent. The land remained divided into 7 independent kingdoms, each ruled by a proud king who believed his crown belonged to him alone. None had ever accepted another ruler. Pride, ambition, and ancient rivalries ensured that every generation inherited yet another devastating war. But far across the narrow sea, on the volcanic island of Dragonstone, a conqueror was preparing to change the fate of Westeros forever. From Dragonstone, a single raven took flight, carrying a message destined for every king, lord, and castle across the 7 kingdoms. Its words were terrifying. From this day forward, there would be only one king in Westeros. Submit and keep your lands, or refuse and be destroyed. Standing atop Dragonstone, Aegon Targaryen had already made his choice. He would unite the 7 kingdoms beneath a single iron crown. The old kings laughed. To them, Aegon was merely a foreign lord with impossible ambitions and no chance of conquering an entire continent. His army numbered fewer than 3,000 soldiers, far too few to capture even a powerful castle, let alone overthrow 7 mighty kingdoms. But the rulers of Westeros made one fatal mistake. They counted Aegon's soldiers, yet completely ignored the true source of his strength. Waiting behind his army stood 3 unstoppable beasts of fire and blood: Balerion, the Black Dread, Vhagar, and the magnificent Meraxes. In that moment, the age of the 7 kings was already ending. The conquest of Westeros and the reign of House Targaryen had begun. When Aegon and his sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys, landed at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, they didn't arrive with a grand invasion force. Instead, they established a modest beachhead protected by a crude wooden fort on a lonely hill, the very place that would one day become King's Landing. At the time, it was little more than a wooden camp overlooking the bay. No one could have imagined it would become the heart of a united Westeros. To the established kings of Westeros, this Targaryen trio looked like a minor nuisance, not a serious threat to their ancient kingdoms. They were simply the last remnants of the fallen Valyrian Empire, destroyed more than a century earlier by the cataclysmic doom that reshaped the known world. With only a small army and 3 dragons, few believed Aegon possessed the strength to conquer 7 independent kingdoms. However, history reveals that Aegon's invasion wasn't driven by raw ambition alone, but by a secret prophecy known as the Song of Ice and Fire. According to that prophecy, Aegon foresaw a dark menace coming from the frozen north, a threat unlike anything Westeros had ever faced. He believed humanity could only survive if the kingdoms stood united beneath a single dragon ruler before that terrible day arrived. To realize this vision, Aegon knew he first had to break the old world and bring an end to the rule of the 7 kings. His conquest needed a beginning powerful enough to send a message across Westeros that resisting the dragons would be futile. So he chose as his very first target the most terrifying tyrant in the realm, Harren, the black ruler of the mighty Harrenhal, a castle believed to be impossible to conquer. King Harren the Black ruled the Riverlands with an iron fist and spent decades enslaving countless people to build Harrenhal, a monument to his pride and power. It became the largest and most impenetrable fortress in human history, with walls so massive and towers so immense that no siege engine could ever hope to break them. When Aegon Targaryen marched to its gates and demanded Harren's surrender, the king refused even to consider the offer, trusting completely in his mighty fortress. From the towering battlements, King Harren looked down at Aegon's army and scoffed, proudly declaring that stone does not burn and that Harrenhal could never fall. Aegon answered with chilling confidence, saying only, "When the sun sets, your line shall end," before turning away to prepare for the coming night. As darkness covered the land, Aegon mounted Balerion, the Black Dread, and ignored the fortress walls entirely. taking to the skies instead of attacking from the ground. Balerion climbed higher and higher into the clouds, beyond the reach of every archer upon the walls, before suddenly diving toward the castle from above. The Black Dread unleashed a torrent of dragonfire, so unimaginably hot that Harrenhal's massive stone towers glowed red and began melting like candles in a blazing furnace. King Harren and every member of House Hoare were trapped inside the fortress they believed could never be conquered, with no escape from the dragon's flames. Within moments, the halls collapsed around them as fire consumed the castle from the inside, ending the Hoare dynasty forever beneath molten stone and ash. By sunrise, the greatest stronghold in Westeros had become a blackened ruin, its twisted towers standing as a permanent reminder that no castle could withstand dragonfire. Witnessing the destruction of Harrenhal, the surrounding river lords immediately bent the knee to Aegon Targaryen, proving that dragons had forever changed the fate of Westeros. The destruction of Harrenhal sent shockwaves across Westeros, convincing the kings of the West that no single castle could stand against Aegon Targaryen and his dragons. Determined to stop the conquest, King Loren Lannister of the Rock and King Mern Gardner of the Reach united their immense wealth, armies, and banners into one colossal force. Together they assembled the legendary host of the Two Kings, an army of nearly 55,000 men, the largest force Aegon would face during his entire conquest. Aegon marched to meet them on a vast open plain in the Reach with barely 10,000 soldiers, leaving many convinced that the Targaryens were marching toward certain defeat. As the battle began, thousands of heavily armored knights thundered across the field, crashing into the Targaryen front lines and driving them steadily backward. To every watching commander, victory for the Old Kingdoms appeared inevitable. But Aegon had carefully chosen the battlefield and patiently waited for the perfect moment. The autumn grass had become dry as tinder beneath the summer sun, and Aegon finally gave the signal that would forever change the course of the battle. For the only time during the entire conquest, all three dragons Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes took to the skies together, their immense shadows swallowing the battlefield below. The dragons unleashed an overwhelming storm of dragonfire, igniting the dry grass and trapping the advancing army inside a roaring furnace of smoke and flames. The Inferno became known forever as the Field of Fire, where more than 4,000 soldiers burned alive inside their armor, while thousands more fled in terror. King Mern Gardner and every one of his heirs perished in the flames, bringing an end to the ancient Gardner dynasty that had ruled the Reach for thousands of years. King Loren Lannister was captured alive, and with his army destroyed, he bent the knee before Aegon Targaryen, surrendering his ancient crown as the smoking battlefield marked the birth of a new kingdom. With the south burning and kingdom after kingdom falling to Aegon Targaryen, Torrhan Stark, the king in the north, gathered an army of 30,000 northern warriors and marched south beyond the Neck. Torrhan intended to drive the Targaryen invaders back toward the sea, but when his massive host finally reached the Trident, he discovered that Aegon was already waiting for him. Aegon's army had grown enormously after the surrender of the southern kingdoms, while Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes rested nearby, giving the Northmen little hope of surviving a direct confrontation. From across the river, Torrhan could see exactly what awaited him: thousands of enemy soldiers, 3 dragons, and the terrifying evidence of Harrenhal's destruction still fresh in his mind. Torrhan's lords urged him to fight, believing the North should never surrender. But the king in the North understood that courage could not protect his people from dragonfire. He faced an impossible choice: win a glorious battle and potentially lose his entire army, or sacrifice his crown and spare the North from becoming another field of ashes. At dawn, Torrhan made his decision. He crossed the Trident and approached Aegon Targaryen, carrying the ancient crown of the Kings of Winter in his hands. Before the assembled armies, Torrhan placed his crown at Aegon's feet and bent the knee. ending thousands of years of independent rule in the north without spilling northern blood. Aegon accepted his surrender, and Torhan rose not as a king, but as Lord of Winterfell. History would remember him forever as the king who knelt. Far to the east, however, another kingdom believed its mountains made it untouchable. Queen Regent Shara Arin ruled the Vale from the supposedly impregnable Eyrie and refused to fear the Targaryens, but Visenya Targaryen simply mounted Vhagar and flew over the mountain defenses, landing directly inside the Eyrie's inner courtyard where the young king Ronal Arryn was playing. The sight of a dragon inside their strongest fortress made further resistance pointless. Shara surrendered the Vale without a battle, and young Ronel even approached Vhagar in wonder, bringing another kingdom peacefully under Aegon's rule. After years of conquest, 6 of the 7 kingdoms had finally fallen beneath Aegon's dragon banner, bringing most of Westeros under Targaryen rule. Only Dorne remained free, refusing to meet the Targaryens in open battle, and instead using the desert itself as their greatest weapon. Yet Aegon's greater vision was taking shape. The kingdoms that had once fought one another were now being united beneath a single crown. From the defeated armies came thousands of surrendered swords. Aegon ordered them gathered and carried to his rising new capital, King's Landing. But Aegon had no intention of sitting upon a comfortable royal chair. He wanted his throne to forever remind Westeros of the price of rebellion. So he summoned the greatest weapon of his conquest, Balerion, the Black Dread. The colossal dragon spread his wings above the mountain of swords. Then Balerion unleashed his black dragonfire. The enormous pile of steel began glowing red as blades twisted, melted, and fused beneath the unbearable heat. From that monstrous mass of defeated weapons emerged the Iron Throne, a jagged seat of countless swords forged together by dragonfire. It was deliberately dangerous and uncomfortable. Every sharp blade carried a message. Those who challenged the dragon could become part of its throne. Westeros was no longer a fractured land of competing kingdoms and ancient rivalries. Most of the continent now answered to one ruler and one dynasty, and from this conquest rose the Targaryen dynasty, ruling from the Iron Throne and beginning a new chapter that would shape Westeros for generations. But Aegon would soon learn that conquering a continent was far easier than keeping it united. The greatest struggles for the Iron Throne had only just begun.